Hey, folks, welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. Tonight, we've got a special guest with us, RISSA Miller, who's an award-winning author, folklorist, historian, and storyteller, whose work explores the strange places where history, folklore, and the unexplained meet. A former award-winning journalist and literary coordinator at the Edgar Allan Poe House and Museum, she has spent nearly a decade leading ghost tours and researching the legends, hauntings, and unusual histories of Pennsylvania and Maryland. Now, RISSA is especially fascinated by the stories communities tell about the places they inhabit and what these stories reveal about both the past and the people who keep them alive. Now, her research takes her on deep dives into historic archives, old newspapers, cemeteries, museums, and of course, more than a few haunted buildings. So, RISSA, thanks for joining me this evening.
Thank you so much for having me back. It is a pleasure to be here with you again on Phantoms and Monsters.
Well, I had a couple people say they wanted you to come back. I haven't been doing many interviews of any, and I figured, well, we're going to ask RISSA to come back. It's been over a year. So, I guess a good subject to talk about is, of course, Ellicott City. You and I are both very aware of this place. I lived down there almost 20 years. I used to work near there. I've seen, heard, and experienced a few things in the past. So I'll just let you take the floor. Give us your presentation. Tell us what you think about Ellicott City and whatever you want to talk about.
Thank you so much, Lon. Okay, so I love Ellicott City. I've never actually lived there. I've lived all around it, but never in it. I have worked in Ellicott City, though, for quite a while. I worked with I still work with Maryland History Tours. It's owned by a fantastic gentleman named Ed, and Ed trained me first to be a ghost tour guide in Ellicott City many, many, many moons ago. And how do I describe? So, well, we're going to jump right in. We're going to jump right into the first ghost story. This is the B&O Railroad. And this is now a museum, and it's free to enter. You can absolutely go to the B&O, experience it, walk through, and maybe you'll meet Charlie. Charlie is the main haunting of the B&O Railroad. Now, this building was put up in 1831. And it was actively a train station until 1950, which is phenomenal. It connected Ellicott City to Baltimore. That was 13 miles of track, lucky 13. And Charlie has had a lot of, how do I want to say, legends in Ellicott City. There are people who swear they have pictures of him looking out the window. And the really interesting thing about Charlie is he was a real person from history. He actually lived there and he was the train conductor there during the time of the Civil War. So the kind of interactions people have with Charlie. I'll share my own personal story first. I was giving a presentation in the upper room that was not about Charlie. It was actually about Edgar Allan Poe. And as I was talking, suddenly two women in two different rows stood up and both screamed at the same time. They both swore that somebody had walked up and put a hand on their shoulder and it was freezing cold. And there was nobody standing there. I was in the middle of giving a presentation. You would have certainly noticed somebody walk up and touch two different people in two different rows. And I was like, oh gosh, that must have been Charlie. I apologize. I did not properly introduce him before I started talking about Poe. And so I was like, this is Charlie's place. He is the haunting here, and he was the station master. So I told a little bit about Charlie's story. Unfortunately, those two ladies did not stick around to hear it. They both took their things and left the presentation. So there is a dog behind me tonight. For those at home, I apologize. She's decided it is time to play squeaky ball. Can you give us some quiet, baby? Okay, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so Charlie does other things. He is still there, basically caretaking the B&O. There are people who say that they hear him dragging cases around upstairs, and they go upstairs and nothing's been moved. But it's almost like he's still bringing in people's luggage. And he's also done kind of helpful things, like toss the trash bag downstairs at the close of the night. So, like many of Ellicott City's ghost stories, he is not a particularly scary ghost. He's kind of a benevolent character. And I do think he is an interactive spirit. I don't think he's residual because he does all kinds of different things. They do have these doors on the front of the building on what would have been, what is still the second floor. And there used to be stairs that came out and came down to ground level.
Mm-hmm.
They had to electronically keep them closed and also sort of bar them shut because Charlie continuously opened them. And it was a straight drop out those doors and down to the ground. So yeah, Charlie has been quite a character at the B&O. A lot of folks have encountered him. They still hear him walking up and down the steps long after the museum's closed and there's nobody there except one or two people downstairs. And I think it's safe to say that I don't think any flood or any other catastrophe is going to scare Charlie away because he's been there through all of it, through Agnes and through all of the recent flooding. He continues to be a presence at the B&O. I think it's his place and he's there to take care of it.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't
pretty
think
safe
so
with that.
Yeah.
So tell me some stories that you don't think I've heard before from Ellicott City.
Stories that I don't think you've heard.
Yeah.
Gosh, let's see. I'm trying to think what pictures you have of tonight. So the things I think you might not have heard. Well, I know you know that one, and I know you know that one. So there used to be a spot there called Tea on the Tiber, and it has been empty since the first big flood. And it was a tea room that, ladies would go and have tea. I guess gentlemen too would go and have tea, and they would serve, scones and fancy high tea and things like that, finger sandwiches with cucumbers. And when they were restoring it, I don't know that you've heard this story, they were trying to finish painting to get the tea room open, and they came in one day and paint had been splashed all over the walls. And as they washed it down, it started to look like dried blood. So as it turns out, in that room, there had been a death of a woman named Catherine. And there were very few details in any of the historic accounts about how or why Catherine died or what was going on there. But one of the other details that we do know is that that was the town butcher for many years when it was Ellicott Mills. So we don't know if she was the wife or a daughter or an employee there. But we do know that Catherine died in that room, and it is strongly believed that when the tea room was reopening or opening, they very much witnessed her sort of saying, yes, that's the spot. They witnessed her sort of saying, I'm still here and I am a presence. And then in the years to follow, while Tea and the Tiber was there, a lot of folks would hear her walking around. They'd hear like the swish of long skirts through the tea room. And honestly, in a tea room, that seems to kind of make sense. It almost feels like a good kind of haunting to have there is an old-fashioned lady.
Mm.
Is that a story
Yeah.
you knew?
Well, I didn't know that story. I know there have been a lot of stories up on Tongue Row and down around, on Tiber.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And people who don't know Ellicott City, that is probably the most fascinating part of the town for me is when you go up from Main Street and you go up the hill and go in through, the alley and everything. And it's like, it's so weird. I mean, that was a thoroughfare, a main thoroughfare for the town at one point. And it's just so narrow.
And
I don't even think
it's very narrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you could even get a wagon through there.
You could get your horse through.
Could you? That's about it.
That's about it. Yeah. So I would love to talk a little bit about Ellicott City. So Ellicott City, for those who don't know, is in Maryland. It is 13 miles south of Baltimore. And it was founded by Quakers. And that pretty much gave it a different personality than any other major part of Maryland that still exists today. It was founded by three brothers from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, the Ellicott brothers, Joseph, Andrew, and John. And they came there to establish a farming colony. So in that area, it was mostly tobacco plantations before them. They were grain farmers. They started Ellicott Mills. They were growing wheat and other grain crops. And that is kind of how Ellicott City got its personality. There were mills there until 2020. Making Indian head cornmeal and Washington flour mix. That was there until 2020 when they moved to the Carolinas. So it's only been 6 years out of over 250 that Ellicott did not have a grain mill, which is kind of wild. I don't even think there aren't really any functional bakeries there right now either, which is kind of sad. But you never know. Yeah, you never know. You never know who's going to pop into one of those little shops next. But Ellicott City, because it was founded by Quakers, had a very different history. Many of the original shopkeepers, like the woman who owned Tongue Row, were women. That's what you're looking at right now is the clay grounds. And I'll come to that in a second. But Tongue Row, that you started talking about a moment ago, was indeed a business owned by a woman named Anne Tongue. She was Quaker, and she came from England after her husband's very early death with her children. And she built housing for mill workers, and she rented them out. And at the time, they went for the salty price of almost $500 a year. But it's because they had fireplaces, and they were pretty nice accommodations. So that said, Anne was one of many female business owners in Ellicott City. Now, I want you to remember that we're talking about the 1700s. So female business owners weren't really very common, except in Ellicott City. Quakers allowed women to own businesses, to have their own money, to choose who they wanted to marry, to have an education, and to inherit property. This is not true most other places in America or the world, even at that time in history. So Ellicott City started with this very unique perspective that continues to this day. Even today, we haven't counted in a minute, but one time Ed from Maryland History Tours and I went through and we counted how many of those businesses today are still owned by women. And as of just a few years ago, the majority of them were still owned by women even today. So for that reason, Ellicott City has a little different perspective. But, you know, since you're talking about Tongue Row, let's talk about the main haunting there. Her name is Cecilia. So, Cecilia was definitely from the Victorian era, which means that she came in maybe halfway through that 250-year history, right? And she probably lived there. She was probably somebody's wife. And Cecilia was a very active spirit for a very long time. There used to be a bookstore in the spot where the little market cafe is now. And the children's books were on the second floor. Cecilia was well known for getting children's books down and giving them to kids. That if a child went in and wanted a toy or a book that was up too high to reach, she would graciously get it down for them. And because she was never considered a dark or sinister spirit, children weren't scared of her. They just graciously took the things and it was all good. Cecilia was seen walking around. There are some of the tour guides who said that guests have caught pictures of her. But one time she met someone she didn't like. And this is one of my favorite ghost stories to share from Tongue Row. Cecilia could flit in and out of all of those little houses on Tongue Row. So it's actually a whole series of small stone houses. And I'll talk about the Ellicott City Stone in a minute because I know you know it's special, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a salon there for quite a while. And there was a woman getting highlights. So for those who don't know, when you get highlights, your hair is put into aluminum foil, literally. There are these pieces of aluminum foil sticking out while they're highlighting your hair. And they're like, your hair is folded into them. It looks very much like you're worried about aliens reading your mind, okay? Because there's aluminum foil all over your head. And so this woman was getting her hair highlighted. She's in her foils, and you have to sit with them for a certain amount of time, 20, 30 minutes, something like that, so that the color takes. So during that time, this salon patron went to the ladies' room, and on her way back down the stairs to get her foils taken out and her hair rinsed, Cecilia appeared in full form, said, "I don't like you. Get out of my house." And the lady literally left in her foils, just straight up went home, absolutely dashed out of the salon. I always had the question, like, did she pay? But maybe not. Apparently, she was terrified. And this is not characteristic of any other story we've ever heard about Cecilia, ever, ever. So this lady must not have been a very nice person.
Yeah.
So yeah, because Cecilia was kind and gracious, or even just neutral to everybody else except this one lady.
Well, you know, I have heard so many legends associated with Ellicott City and the environs. And of course, I don't buy into every one of them. You know, I mean, it's an old town, and there's a lot of old stories.
Oh yes,
and old stories get expounded upon. So, yeah. Can you tell us any other real ghastly stories from Ellicott City?
there aren't a lot of ghastly stories.
Hmm.
There are a lot of sad stories that I can do
Yeah.
sad stories. Ghastly,
Okay.
not as much. We could go up onto Mount Misery and talk about the jail. That's kind of ghastly. Or we could go to the Ilchester Bridge and talk about the Flickergeist. Now, I think the Flickergeist, I think we talked about that when I was on here talking about Hell House.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
Ilchester Tunnel and Bridge is a fascinating story because they made a movie about it, right? So we were talking earlier about the B&O Railroad, and the B&O Railroad used to come out and go around that mountain right there. And that was not the best plan. Every time there was a flood, the structure would get washed away. And so they decided in 1902 to blast through the mountain and put in the tunnel. It worked out great, and suddenly the railroad could easily come and go and no longer was plagued by the bridges getting washed out by floods.
Mhm.
So yes, there we go. That's the Ilchester Bridge. So over time, the story of a Flickergeist popped up. Now, flickergeists aren't unique to this area. Flickergeists actually are a phenomenon we can trace back to Europe. A flickergeist is a entity, I want to say. I don't know if I would use the word ghost. I'm going to say an entity that is going to lure you to your death. It is not the same as a benevolent spirit like in the rest of Ellicott City. But especially when you
Right.
get back in that Seven Hills area, there's a lot of dark stuff back there. So the Flickergeist
Yeah.
allegedly will lure you down the tracks into the Ilchester Tunnel. And there's a great shot. Those are the tracks. That's the tunnel. I want to emphasize to everybody listening that these tracks are still live today. I have never, ever, ever personally walked them because I don't want to get hit by a train. So I people are always like, did you walk down there? I'm like, absolutely not. A, it's illegal. B, those are live tracks. Like if a train should come
Yeah.
along and I'm like, busy taking pictures or distracted, that there's nowhere to go. So and I can't
Yeah,
personally
and that tunnel isn't long either, so they come through there pretty
They sure
quick.
do, and I'm not personally fast enough or fit enough to outrun a train. So, I know I've never walked the tracks into the tunnel, nor do I plan to. This would be a great spot if, somebody has a drone. That's how you get those pictures, right?
Yeah.
So, all of that said, the Flickergeist is an entity that as you get closer to it, you feel like you're being stared at, and the whole idea is you don't blink. That's what they also call this entity the Blink Man. You don't blink. The minute you blink, he can take you. But the thing is, you're
Mm.
also going to be distracted and you're gonna have to blink because humans have to blink. Our eyes will be damaged if we go longer than however many so seconds without blinking. And every time you blink, he's closer. He's closer. He's closer. And finally, he's so close that you haven't noticed that he's about to push you in front of the oncoming train. And that is how that story goes.
Oh.
In 2008, a movie, I'm sorry, 2018, a movie was released called Butterfly Kisses. And the whole idea is that you've gotten close enough to the Blink Man that your eyelashes can touch, which is quite terrifying, to be totally honest. So, yeah, that's terrifying to have your eyelashes touch a ghost. But I think that's one of the more ghastly stories from Ellicott City for me personally. A negative, dark, malevolent creature that wants to throw you in front of an oncoming train.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there've been a lot of death associated with that bridge,
Absolutely.
and, there've been people have been hit inside that tunnel too, so, yeah, that's not unusual. What I don't know if you remember people used to, get on the trestle and climb up the hill
Yes.
above the
Yes,
tunnel.
I do know about that.
They'd hang out up there. It's like, oh my god, one of those people just slipped one. I mean, because it was so
Yeah,
steep.
it's still very steep.
Oh,
They haven't changed.
yeah,
It's still very steep
yeah,
because it's literally right next to the Hell House Hill. So,
right,
it's all right there together.
yeah. It was, well, when I used to work there, right there where Simpkins was across the river. We had the power plant right there,
Mhm.
and then of course we had the bridge to the left, and all the railroad and stuff, and up into the hills, up into the college. And man, you'd be out there in the summertime, middle of the night, just standing there at the door, and you'd hear all kinds of crazy stuff come from up that hill.
I'm
It,
sure.
it was really
I'm
amazing
sure.
sometimes. We saw a lot of UFO activity up and down that
I've
valley.
heard that from multiple places. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've even heard that from, people associated with the museum and their spouses that they have indeed witnessed that as well.
Yeah, there was another phenomenon that used to happen all the time, and we used to have a lot of meteorites come down through that valley.
Really?
They would flash green, and I saw at least 5 of them
Huh.
the time I've been there.
Okay.
And it'd be weird because you'd be up on the hill, you'd be up on River Road,
Mhm.
and it'd be dark, and you're there talking to somebody, and all of a sudden a big green flash lights up the whole area.
Interesting.
And I have seen 5 of those.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's ever gonna come up with a legend about that, but we used to talk about it down the middle all the time. that these meteorites would keep hitting into the valley.
Interesting.
So
Yeah,
it was
down
weird.
into the
It was
hollow.
weird.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, the pictures that you just saw were of the museum. They're on the opposite hill. It's called Mount Misery. So there's 7 hills on one side and Mount Misery on the other. And,
Hmm.
I think one of the best things about those pictures in the museum is you can see the Ellicott City stone. So, let's talk about that for a second. The Ellicott City stone is a composite granite, and it is the bedrock of the town. And it is believed by many experts that that is one of the reasons that this little town is so very haunted. It is this bowl, basically, of this composite granite that has crystal in it, and it is
Hmm.
believed that energy bonds down to it. And, this town is also the intersection of 2 rivers, the Tiber and the Patapsco. And we know that, of course, nowadays because we think of it with the floods, but in the paranormal community, a
Hmm.
crisscrossing of 2 rivers is a very liminal space, and it is another hotbed for paranormal activity. So these 2 things going on at the same time are fascinating. And then we brought in the modern world, and we put an electric grid on top of this bowl. So here we have the bowl of granite with the 2 rivers on one side and the small, estuaries coming in on the either other side, and then we put an electric grid on top. It's almost like we closed a Tupperware, boop, and it created a fascinating spot for the paranormal. So much activity, all kinds of activity happens in this town.
Yeah, it's a weird town. I mean, it's just got that
It
energy.
does. And there's something about
I
it, you
mean,
can't
I
help but go
yeah,
back to it over and over. It's
yeah,
fascinating the way the town itself seems to lure you in.
yeah. Well, I used to love, when I was living in Sykesville, I had to come down Old Frederick
Mhm.
Road and go through Ellicott City to go to work, and I used to love coming through there at
Yep,
nighttime because it just seemed like you're just stepping back in history
yeah,
because basically, I
yeah.
mean, the buildings were all historical
Pretty much
buildings.
all of them are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you right now you're looking at the judge's bench, and, the judge's bench is a place with a fantastic ghost story. Let me linger here for a moment. So the building you're looking
Mhm.
at was originally constructed in the 1860s, and for a very long time, it was all different kinds of stores. And then we come into the 1960s, and it's like a mom and pop grocery store. Like before we had Giant, Safeway, and Kroger and places like that, grocery stores were independently owned, like everything else used to be. And so this family had an independent grocery store there. Now, Ellicott City is adorable today and a wonderful spot for tourists, but it wasn't always that way. It used to be kind of a rough part of town that was known for like wine, women, and song. So rough, in fact, the soldiers from Fort Meade were allegedly not allowed to go there, which of course means that's where they went.
Yeah.
So that said, this family that owned the grocery store there, I believe it was the Burger family, had a daughter named Mary. Mary is one of the most famous and most active ghosts in Ellicott City. She is still there. So she fell in love with a boy from Ellicott City, and her parents were like, "Oh, absolutely not. You cannot marry a local boy. You have to marry someone not from Ellicott City." And they forbid her from ever seeing him again. Now, she was only
Mhm.
19, but remember in the 1960s, that wasn't a shocking age to get married. It's not like today where if somebody got married at 19, we'd be surprised. But back then, that was a normal age. So that said, Mary found no way forward except ending her own life without her guy. And on that 3rd floor of that building, she ended her life, and to this day, it is said that she's still there. There are so many reports of Mary. There are even within probably the past year, there are dozens of new ones. The normal things that Mary does are to move things around, to slide beers back and forth, that you hear her voice, that you're in the bathroom and suddenly your stuff's moving around, or the toilet paper rolls out like almost like a cat is taking it down. But they always say it's Mary. There could be a cat ghost there. There are a couple of others in Ellicott City. But my favorite story about Mary was there was a bartender there through the late 90s that could see and hear her. He was a graduate student from University of Maryland, and he worked there as a bartender through his master's degree. And
Mhm.
because he could interact with her, they became friends. And even after he finished school, he stayed for a very long time because he knew once he left, she couldn't come with him. She was going to be there. And apparently, people who witnessed this said they had this great friendship that they say that almost as if fate had finally sent her a good guy who was her Ellicott City boy for a little while. He
Mm.
did eventually have to move on and start his career. But I love the story of the bartender who was gifted in that he could see and hear her and interact with her. And I imagine in a life, an afterlife, I guess, this kind of probably lonely for her. She had at least one person who made her feel seen and heard.
When you do tours in Ellicott City,
Mhm.
oh, let's say that you're giving an overall
Mhm.
tour of the whole area. What places do you hit, and what are some of the more interesting stories as you go
Well, it
along?
depends on what you like, I guess. But
Well, that's true too.
oh, yep, there's me giving a tour. So that's my girls' night out tour. On that tour, I give only women's history of the town, and I only talk about the female hauntings. So that's a really fun tour because there's so much women's history there because of the Quakers. So some of the different places that many of the guides hit, we always talk about the B&O. We often will talk about Tongue Row. We will talk about the old jail up on top of Mount Misery. We talk about the Clayground sometimes. Yep, there's the B&O again. We will talk about the old bookshop that was owned by Deborah Disney. The museum, of course, the Phoenix, and the Judge's Bench. The Wine Bin is a classic. So there, almost every build. There's the jail. So almost every building there has ghost stories, and the longer
Mm.
you're hanging around that town as a ghost tour guide, the more of them you know. Honestly, like if I'm on Main Street, the tour could take 3 hours. Nobody wants to hear me talk for 3 hours long, to be clear, but because we have to keep it to 90 minutes when we're doing a tour. But all of that said, there are multiple ghost story tours, rather, because there's so many stories here. And each one of us guides, and there are 8 of us, could do it differently. Like you could go any Friday night or Saturday night, get a different guide and have a completely different experience because there are so many ghost stories and so many legends in this little town. There's a great view right there down the hill of downtown Ellicott City. And you can see even today, it's not a wide modern street. It is a fantastic old town that does indeed, sorry about the dog again. She's at it. She's playing. No, no. Can we stop? No. So it is a great old town, and it is like stepping into another time when you go there because it has been so beautifully preserved.
Yeah, as soon as I moved down there and started working down at Simpkins, I mean, it was like the whole history. And of course, I was
Mhm.
into the paranormal anyway, but the
Right.
whole history of that river valley is just unbelievable. I mean, there's just so many different things that have happened there
Oh, yes. So
for just
many.
250 years. Just that history itself. Yeah, it's just a lot.
It is a lot, and, when I started there as a tour guide, I started with just 1 tour, and of course, I added on more and more and more because, I'm me. But, that said, um, you know, the way that you start to see how these stories weave together and sort of create the fabric of this town and this community is absolutely fascinating. So I'm trying to think which one to like sort of get into next. Let's talk about the wine bin. So at the top of the hill, right across the street from the judge's bench, there's a store called the Wine Bin, and it's been the Wine Bin since 2008. It's been owned by a guy named Dave, and, it's been sort of a pillar of the community because that's almost 20 years that it's been the Wine Bin, right?
Mhm.
But before that, there was an antique store in there, and then before that, it was the fire department.
Mm.
It was the fire department, and it was operated by Captain Shipley. And Shipley, was a man about the community, not unlike Dave at the Wine Bin, actually. And he had a dog named, Yogi, And they say that both of them are still there today. So when it was a fire department in 1938, part of the New Deal from FDR financed this building. And it became the town's fire department until 1995, which is wild because imagine imagine the fire trucks on these streets, right? These streets in Ellicott City. It makes so much sense that they finally had to move it out of the historic district.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a
Yeah.
little tight.
Yep. But those
And,
those
go ahead.
doors you see were the front where the fire trucks would come and go, the front of the wine bin right now.
Right.
So Captain Shipley is still there, and they see him both upstairs and downstairs. Upstairs right now is one of those axe guard, axe throwing places where you can go and like, throw knives and axes at targets and things. But that said, that's a full moon shot over the town, which I think is kind of cool. So the wine bin, Ellicott City's Captain Shipley, the ghost. So he has this open door policy. And when Dave first opened the wine bin, he had a lot of trouble with Shipley. He had the problem that Shipley would unlock the doors at night. So it got to the point where Dave had installed cameras. He was like, which of my employees isn't locking the door? The employees were locking the doors. The doors would then unlock themselves after dark because Shipley had an open door policy for the fire department. And he didn't understand why a liquor store needed to be locked up. And so they finally started just talking to him and saying like, look, we also welcome the community, but this is a retail store now and we need to keep it locked up. So my personal experience with Shipley was I was starting a pub crawl there, and it was not a ghost tour. I was actually talking about history of Maryland witches, which is a different program I do. And so I had given my introduction, and all of a sudden behind me, all of these beers fell on the floor and they just started going boop, 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 like as if somebody was knocking them down. And luckily nothing was broken, but I was like, oh, once again, I have neglected to pay proper respect to the ghost of this building. I was like, so we will be pausing the witch tour and I will be telling the story of Captain Shipley and his Dalmatian Yogi. So I did, and I do that every time I start there now because, you have to be respectful of the ghosts who live in a building.
Right. Has there been any death associated with any of the hauntings or even cryptids or anything that have been seen in that area?
As in like there were murders, or like, I'm not sure.
Well, either that or attacks or some type of assault that people associate with the phenomena that's there.
There's a tragic story of a girl who was raped and murdered and is still a haunting in Ellicott City. And her name was Gertrude in life. And she was in the building that was originally in the fire department before Shipley's, where they kept the horses for the bucket brigade. And Gertrude decided that there was a young man she didn't want to marry. And instead of accepting her no graciously, he decided that no one else would have her. And she died for that no. And she is still there today in the Manor Hill Tavern. That building has undergone many, many, many changes, but she is still there. And the stories about her are numerous. Even today, people who work there experience her. One of my favorite stories was a gentleman walked in and the bar wasn't very busy. And he walked up to the bartender and he said, I hear you have a ghost here. I want to meet this ghost. Out of nowhere, a female voice said, well, rack them up, meaning like put out the drinks. So the bartender set drinks. I don't think Trudy actually drank hers, but they've even named cocktails and appetizer specials after her. She has done very mischievous things. Like one time they were set up for a party in the party room, and they came in the morning and all the tables were upside down, balanced on the upside down wine glasses, inverted. So that is one of the stories that is associated with a murder or a death. Like I said, it's sad. It's a sad story, but it seems like she's having lots of fun now, and that she's kind of at home at the Manor Hill Tavern.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of tragedy up and down that river. I mean, just from
Absolutely.
stories I've heard and things that I've seen and read and
Yeah.
got involved with. But
Oh, there's a good story involved with this site. So this is the Patapsco Female Institute. It's a park now. It took $10 million to restore this building after the Satanic Panic, but Howard County did it. I think if they hadn't, this would be another hell house. So, right? So that said, PFI is now a historic park, and those are the ruins that are there. This was Ellicott City's girls' school. It was hang on, I have my dates here. It was built in 1837. It is made of Ellicott City stone, and it was most famous from 1841 to 1856 because a woman named Almira Lincoln Phelps was the headmistress, and she was internationally famous as an educator of girls and a millionaire in that time from her books. So to be a millionaire in 1856 is mind-bending. It is mind-bending. But she made $3 million in her life from her books.
wow.
Right? So
that's pretty amazing for that time.
right?
Anyway.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. She's quite something. If you're interested in women's history, Almira Lincoln Phelps is definitely a name to look at. So the story of the ghost is Annie Vanderlot. So Annie was allegedly a student there. Now, Almira Lincoln Phelps was so famous, she attracted students from everywhere, including Europe, Cherokee Nation, all over, literally everywhere. Annie Vanderlot came from the antebellum South. So coming to Maryland meant that she was going to be experiencing winters for the first time. Heavy, cold, freezing cold winters with snow and ice. And that hill, Mount Misery, is no joke. So Annie kept writing home saying, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. Please come get me. I'm going to die here. Her parents were like, she's just whining. She'll be fine. And finally, she wrote to her grandmother. And Annie sent to her grandmother, everybody's getting sick. You have to come get me. Now, it is true that many girls died at PFI from influenza or even common colds because this was, pre-germ theory, right? So, unfortunately, the story goes that Annie did get sick. And even though her grandmother got in her carriage and rode up to Maryland to come and get her, she was too late. Annie had died until her grandmother got there to retrieve her and take her back. Now, Annie is one of the most commonly seen ghosts on Mount Misery. They say that she has long blonde hair and that you can see her in what you would call a day dress anywhere on the property. Apparently, dog walkers see her the most because people are walking their dogs there in the early morning and in the evening, which are like sunrise, sunset times. And that's when Annie seems to appear the most. She's not the only ghost of PFI. There are others. There's the shadow, which is just a disembodied shadow that seems to walk around and stand next to people. There's no person, but there'll be a shadow cast next to you as though somebody is standing there. And then there is a residual, which is a man from the 1950s who appears in like his vest and attire, smoking a cigar. And you see him walking on a floor that's not there because that part of the building does not exist anymore. So I have not personally witnessed Annie or the cigar smoking man or the shadow, but I know a lot of people who have, including Ed, the man who owns Maryland History Tours. He was there for a historic event. And sure enough, he looked down and saw a shadow next to his, and he looked next to him and there was nobody there. He said he went and got in the car. And I was like, Ed, I don't think a car door would stop a ghost. And he's like, yeah, I know that. He's like, but I felt better about it. So there that is. But Annie's story is tragic, and it is an unfortunate death. But in both of the schools, both PFI and at the school that was Hell House, it was very real that people would die of influenza or pneumonia. Those things definitely really happened. There's Tong Row.
There's Tong Row. Folks, if you're in the chat tonight and you've got a question for RISSA, go ahead and put it in all caps and put it in the chat and we'll try to get to it. Okay, go ahead, Rissa.
So, in this picture, you can see some of the buildings of Tung Row. You can see that beautiful Ellicott City stone right there behind the flowers, and then the blue building, which is on, I guess, like screen right, that has the awning. That is Little Market Cafe, where Cecilia was most often seen. So, yeah, there you get a better shot now.
Mhm.
That's more like what it looks like now, and, it's a bustling restaurant, but you can't go inside the building anymore, because they use it as a kitchen.
Oh, really?
Yep.
It
Yep.
it looks a lot like it used to look.
Yeah. Yeah. They actually have a sign out there right now that says Boo Boulevard.
Do they?
Yeah, it's super cute. I when I saw it the first time, I laughed out loud. It's somewhere in this mix of photos. I don't know actually what I called it, but, I don't know if we'll see it tonight or not, but it is cute, and it's almost like they're sort of claiming their haunted history there on Tongue Row,
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
it's not just a Halloween thing, it's out all the time. So I
Um,
really love too, this particular restaurant puts out like a 10-foot werewolf every Halloween, which I think is great. You know, we have the Patapsco Howler
yeah,
just
we got
right
some.
down just yeah, oh,
Yeah.
there it is, Boulevard. We have the Patapsco Howler, and they get this giant werewolf out and sit him right there in the courtyard. And I was like, "I wonder if the Patapsco Howler likes this." And, maybe it
Mhm.
makes him or her feel more at home, I don't know. But yeah, the Patapsco Howler story is literally right down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had a few things happening this past couple years as well. So, especially in Colombia and down over in,
Actually, in
uh,
Ellicott too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what we're
Uh,
looking at now is the visitor center, and you can see more of that beautiful Ellicott City stone. And I have had personal encounters with the ghost at the visitor center. Her name is Loretta. Her name was actually Loretti, but we call her Loretta now. And a lot of people have seen her because she does appear in spectral form. That was not my experience, but she lived there a long time ago, many generations of that property back when it was a funeral home. She was one of the children of the funeral, I guess, director,
mhm.
the undertaker who was there. At one time, there were 7 funeral homes in Ellicott City. The death business has
Is
always
that
been
right?
Yes, the death business has always been part of Ellicott City's history.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
We had Annie Easton and one of the first female undertakers in America in Ellicott City. Her building is gone, it's been ripped down. But
Mm,
anyway, Loretta at the visitor center. So, I was a very new tour guide, and I used to actually carry an oil lantern that would be lit with real fire.
mhm.
'Cause, it looks very cool, right? It's very cool. So I had this oil lantern lit with real fire, with real fuel in it, and I went into the ladies' room of the visitor center, and I was using the ladies' room facilities, and I watched my lantern tip over. It was lit. The whole building could have gone up. I was terrified,
Wow.
but for whatever reason, the flame went out. It just went out. And then I was like I was rushing trying to get to it. I'm like, "Oh my god, like, what is happening?" I'm like, "Loretta, if that's you, please stop." And then I watched my cell phone, the phone I had right before this one, start to slide along and reach the end of a shelf and tip off. And and that phone had a crack all the way down the screen for most of the
Yeah.
years I had it from that fall. I had a few strong words for Loretta that day. Um, I did. I did, and, I always talk to her when I'm on the property there. She rarely talks back, but she does. I'm not the only person who moves, who's experienced her moving things around in the bathroom. For whatever reason, she seems to be active in the bathroom. My boss, Ed, said when he used to have his office there at the visitor center, he looked into his screen, like I'm looking at you right now, and he saw a reflection of her standing right behind him, looking over his shoulder. People have seen her reflection a lot, in the bathroom
Mhm.
and, in computer screens, in the windows upstairs. So, she's definitely around, and I wouldn't say she's malevolent, but she's definitely curious and she's playful.
Mhm. Got a question here from Lala Bright. Have you ever wondered whether telling a ghost story over and over could somehow give that story a life of its own?
Oh, it absolutely gives that story a life of its own. A 100%. So, It keeps these stories alive, first of all,
Mm,
and it keeps a
mm,
face on the history of this town or whatever town the stories are about. And I think that's one of my favorite pieces of the ghost story phenomenon is that okay, most people look at history as a really dry, dead thing that no
mhm,
longer relates to them. But when you give it a ghost story, you are giving it a personality, perhaps a tragedy, but a life. You're giving it a life. And suddenly history is a lot more interesting. So you
mm,
can be like, when did Loretta live? What was it like to be the daughter of an undertaker in, the 1800s? What did that life look like? And, maybe because we're still talking about Loretta today, she sticks around. I mean, who knows how it works to be a ghost? I surely do not. I cannot explain the phenomenon. I know there's some, feeling that residuals have a scientific-ish explanation, being
mhm,
like a scar on time-space, but there is no explanation for the interactive intelligent ghosts.
mhm.
We just don't know. And a lot of non-believers just haven't experienced it. And I think once you do, it's very hard to get it out of your brain.
Yeah, the best witnesses are non-believers
The
that saw
skeptics,
something.
yeah. I love the skeptics on my tours, Lon. They are my favorite guests because it is always them that prove the point.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers to the
Happens a
skeptics.
lot. Sir Wolf, hi Rissa. Is there granite underneath the whole town? Did they incorporate granite in their houses, walls, etc.? Yeah,
Yes and
I,
yes.
yes,
Yes
yes,
and
yeah.
yes. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
actually
very
have a
similar
piece of
to
it. I
what
wish I brought it.
I
I
think the
forgot it.
granite is very similar to what they got up in Gettysburg, that how
It
real
is.
high
Mhm.
bedrock. And but the interesting thing about here in South Central Pennsylvania and the connection with the harbor and is that we have these underground aquifers that run 50, 60 miles north from the bay.
Mhm.
So with all that water very close to the surface, I mean, you would think the hauntings and some of the other activity would be, you know, crazy, and which it is. I mean, we get so much goes on in Gettysburg in particular, of course, here in Ellicott City and other areas. It's that, and I blame it on that very high bedrock. Because you go to Gettysburg, you can see the bedrock in certain areas that's
You
just
can.
sticking
Even
out.
Ellicott too. Ellicott too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know. I just figured it had to be had to be a very high quartz type of granite that is in both locations.
I ages ago, I was super curious, so I interviewed a geologist, and
Mm,
his big takeaway was, he said that we know that certain kinds of stone, certain kinds of rock do radiate energy. They can scientifically prove that certain rock radiates energy of its own, has an electromagnetic frequency that is measurable. And he said there are other stones that, very sensitive people get headaches around, or they feel auras around, or like, and I mean like migraine auras. And he's like, "I can't say that it's wrong." He's like, "I can't say that this theory is not true." He's like, "It could be true." He's like, "We just maybe don't have the science to understand it yet," which
mm,
I thought was an interesting thing to come from a scientist,
mm,
because he said that in his long career with geology, that there were too many things he couldn't explain and a lot of coincidences, and he said that he feels in science coincidences are leading somewhere, but he couldn't say what it was.
right. Huh. Well, he's got more of an open mind than a lot of these people.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So, Rissa, what do you have plans to what's going on for the rest of the year with you and any other projects? I know you're thinking about doing another book. Anything else going on?
Well, in Ellicott City, if you want to come see me there, I have a ton of stuff booked in October, November, and December. I have ghost tours and pub crawls, and I'll be doing my girls' night out again. And again, that is only for female identifying guests, but it is lots of fun because there's so much women's history there. And I will be presenting a new program in Ellicott City, which is Urban Legends of Maryland. And that will be at the museum. I love being at the museum because it's haunted and sometimes the ghosts actually show up.
Yeah.
They actually show up in the middle of me talking,
It's a
and
nice
yeah,
location
it's
too.
great. Yeah, the museum is beautiful. It's the old Presbyterian church. For those who don't know, we did show pictures of it a bit ago. And I have had the ghosts literally show up and the whole room be so cold you could see your breath. So it's a wild location to give talks and to perform in that way.
Hmm.
But yes, and then on November Friday the 13th, I will be doing History of Superstitions at the museum. And later in December, Krampus will be joining me for my Holiday Cryptids program. So it's always fun. Krampus is a fantastic addition to the show.
Right.
So, but yes, and if you love Ellicott City, Maryland History Tours does ghost tours there every Friday and Saturday night on Mount Misery and Main Street. And then in October, there's even more. So it's a great place to go, walk around all afternoon, grab some food, lots of great small businesses to support, and then take a ghost tour at night.
Well, you and I are going to be giving a presentation in September at
We
the
are in
Albatwitch Festival, the one in Columbia, not the one in
Columbia. Correct.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
Got to keep it straight. There's so many things happening these days, so many events.
And I think we have something going on in November in Gettysburg as well.
We
Yeah.
do. Yep.
So these will be our Mothman presentation. I don't know, I had to go back and look because there's been a few things have happened since the last time we did the presentation. So we might have to do an update soon on that.
Yeah, we should probably meet up offline and talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight.
It's a pleasure.
We did have requests to have you come on, so I decided, sure, I'll bring RISSA in and tell us a little more about our history around this area, and it's very much appreciated. So you take care, have a good weekend, and
Thank you.
We'll get you back on here again at some point.
That sounds fantastic. It's always a pleasure, Lon. And whoever requested me, thank you so much. It's good to know I have a few fans out there.
Okay, folks. Well, thanks for joining on this evening. And look, if you do want more interviews, I'll see what I can do. It's not my favorite thing to do that much more, but it does give us a break once in a while. So again, if you're in the chat tonight, if you did donate, it's very much appreciated. So yeah, we'll see you next Friday night. You take care.